You don't need a stage. You need a chair and the guts to tell the truth. I don't have all the answers. I'm still sorting out my own. But I've learned that when we name something, we drag it into the light, and it doesn't own us the same way anymore. This is for anyone else who's tired of bluffing and just wants to name what's real while we build. Most weeks it's me, sometimes a guest. Always becoming, always honest. This is no stage, just a chair. Man, I wish I had another cappuccino. And I'm okay if that's the first thing in the episode that's said. Man, I wish I had another cappuccino. Let's start with a story. When I was 13 years old, my dad came home and let my family know that we just got this Ford dealership. My dad had been in the energy industry, chemical industry for years and years. And here in Oklahoma, that was the 80s where there was this huge farming bust. There's like an oil bust and a farming bust that all happened. And a lot of people in those industries lost everything. My family was tied to that. The company my dad worked for, they were really terrible about everything. And instead of letting go employees, instead they just announced that if you wanted your job, that job was in California now. And everybody had to move out there. And they did that knowing full well that most of the people wouldn't move because they just couldn't. Didn't have the means to do it. Couldn't afford cost of living in California as opposed to Oklahoma. And we went through a long window of time where we didn't know what was going to happen. And one day my dad came in and said, family meeting, let's sit down and talk. We all sat down at the dinner table. And I was the youngest in my family, so I was the only sibling that was left at home. I was 13 years old. And Dad said, we got the dealership. And as a 13-year-old, I'm thinking, yes. When I turn 16, I'm going to have a new car. And his words that day was, nothing changes today. Which isn't what I was expecting to hear. I wasn't expecting nothing changes today. I was expecting everything changes today. And instead, nothing changes today. And he said the reason that nothing changes today is because there's two ways to do this. I can either make a lot of money fast and ultimately kill the company, or I can make a reasonable amount, and as time passes, we build. And I didn't have this term for it at the time, but really what he was talking about is building a book of business. He wanted to build a book of business. He wanted to build a clientele, and it was a clientele that trusted him, that was taken care of by him, that they were doing the right things in order to cultivate them, that he was doing the right things in order to make sure that they always came back, because he didn't want to sell once. He wanted to sell forever. He didn't want to make all the money he was ever going to make in that moment. He wanted to build a relationship that would stand and grow and develop over time. That's what he wanted. And that day at 13, I learned the difference between the long game and the short game. The short game, for the sake of this conversation, the short game is shortcuts, slickness, forced results, and anxiety. That's the short game. The short game is fear. The short game is, how do I get what I got to get right now? And how do I get as much of it as possible? Versus the long game. The long game is built on trust, credibility, and frankly, a legacy. That's the long game. And the temptation that we all fight is we all fight the temptation of the short game. We all fight that temptation. We all fight it, frankly, in traffic. Like, think about this for a second. How many of you have been driving in traffic and there's that one guy, that one person? And we made this joke. I lived in Houston for about 5 years. Whenever I lived in Houston, one of the jokes that I would talk about is they would talk about people in traffic. And the way they drive is their goal is to beat you. They just want to get ahead of you. They were going to get in front of you. That's all they really care about. And the reality is they drive like maniacs. They take shortcuts. They do all the stupid things. They put themselves at risk. And they do all of those things to save 12 seconds. Has anybody else had this moment where maybe I'm the only person, but I will lean into it, me being the only person. Have you ever, you get up and the light turns yellow and you slow down and stop and the guy next to you plows through that yellow light, just racing ahead. You slow down, stop. You're sitting there at that yellow. You're sitting there at that red light. Light turns green. And you get to the next light and you look and that guy who blew through the yellow is still sitting there waiting for you. Man, that's a great moment. Such a good feeling. Such a good feeling seeing them take the shortcut. And let's be real. We've all run the yellow light a few times. But we've also been those people that see others driving like idiots in traffic. And then when you see them getting pulled over, it's like, all is right with the world. All is right. They didn't win by being jerks. Matter of fact, they're going to arrive after you do. That's a little snapshot of the short game versus the long game. We get in such a rush to get there, and all we save is 12 seconds. We add anxiety, we add stress. We step on people along the way. And we become somebody that we don't want to be. It's the short game versus the long game. Because the short game is quick money through manipulation. Flash, empty promises. It's common in so many places. They take the shortcuts. They take the shortcuts that ultimately harm them down the road. Here's the question that I ask you as you build your business, as you live your life, as you have friendships, as you build your families, as you do all these things. Here's the question. Are your decisions creating anxiety or credibility? Because one of the things that my dad said that I really appreciated, and if I'm being honest, I've had moments of success and failure in doing this in my life. He said that his measure is being able to sleep peacefully. He just wants to sleep well. He wants to be able to put his head down on his pillow at the end of the day, know that he did what was right that day. It's really right. So the question that I ask you as an entrepreneur, as a friend, as a parent, as a human, are your decisions creating anxiety or credibility? Because credibility is built one deal at a time. It's built by aligning with your values and your reputation. And it's leaning into that sleep test. Can I put my head on the pillow? Can I sleep well knowing the decisions that I made today? Because, and this is just a reality of business today. So much of the time, businesses leap automatically into this place of how do we extract every penny of value? We extract every penny. And here's the sad thing, and I hope that I hope that we can lean into this and realize this. When our baseline question becomes, how do we extract every penny? Then that's a warning sign that we are cutting our own throats. That's a warning sign. That's a warning sign because when we leap to that extracting every penny also leads to shortcuts. Good friend of mine who's a restaurateur. He wants to give people really great food. It's like, I want to give them really great food. It's not the cheapest food, but it's great food. When people come in, he wants his staff to do a really great job of being hospitable. And you know how he develops a staff that's really hospitable? By taking care of his staff. He takes care of them. They take care of people. He takes care of his chefs. He sets them up to make really great food. His front of house staff is taking great care of people. So when you take great care of people and you serve them great food, what happens? Ta-da! Great restaurant. It's not about slinging the cheapest noodles. It's not about selling the cheapest thing. It's about adding value, and it's becoming indispensable instead of annoying. How can we become indispensable? How can we become part of what a celebration is? How can we become so valuable? Because we've added so much value to our clients, our customers, our friends, and our family. How can we add value to them? It's a different measuring stick. It's a different process. It's a different ideology. It's a different approach. And in my opinion, as a hopeless idealist, over the course of 1, 5, 10, 15 years, it is the path to long-term success. One of the things my dad said to me when I was younger is he gave me some advice. I'm going to give you a little cheat code. And down below this video, if you have your little cheat codes for finding good people, add them to the conversation because I would love to hear your cheat codes. Here's mine. My dad said, as a car dealer, how do you find good car people? And his advice was this: when you go to buy a car and you walk onto the lot, you ask for the salesperson who's been there the longest. And you ask for the salesperson who's been there the longest because the reason they're staying is because they're building relationships and longevity. Because crooks last about 18 months. They last about 18 months. They burned all the bridges and they have to move on. If somebody's been there 5 years, they're a different kind of person. It's the tell. It's the dead giveaway. So the question that I have for you as a business owner, what's the tell in your industry? What is the tell that lets people know that you actually care about doing good work? You actually care about doing good things. You actually care about adding value in everything that you do. What's the tell? What's the dead giveaway? It's not about what you say, it's about what you do. How do you do that? For me, it pushes us back to that baseline of how do we become indispensable? Whether you're a hospital, whether you're a restaurant, whether you're a media company, whether you're anything and everything. How do we get back to a place of being humans and treating each other like humans? because that's the place that things last. My best friend that I've talked about it a few times, Jared, he runs this business and it's called Weldon Jack. You can look it up if you want to, by all means. I love him. I love what he's doing. I think it's amazing. But one of the phrases that goes along with Weldon Jack is, well done is better than well said. That's the 5 and 10 year thing. That is the long game. Because the reason it's called Weldon Jack is because it's actually named, his grandfather's name is Jack Weldon Smith. And he said, if I'm going to name something after my grandfather, if I'm going to attempt to build a legacy, then I want to build the kind of legacy that my grandfather also built. And I don't want to taint his legacy by doing things poorly. I want to do it well. Well done is better than well said. I want to be proud of the things that we're doing, proud of the things that we offer, proud of the products, proud of how we treat people, proud of all those things. That's the long game. That's how we lean into the long game. Another friend of mine, his name's Anthony. Anthony is a expat from the UK. He's an architect here in Oklahoma City. And I can remember years ago, he was speaking at something, and he said something at the time that I really love to hear. And over the years, I've built a bit of a friendship and a bit of a relationship with Anthony, and I really like and respect him. And the thing that he said that day is he talked about in America that there is so much disposable architecture. And what he means by disposable architecture is there's a lot of businesses that build a thing and you're going to be in it 10, 15, maybe 20 years. And he said, as an architect, he wants to build things that in 100 years, people in that community will be glad that he built it. That's his threshold. That's his success. That's his long game. His long game isn't flash. His long game isn't just appearance. His long game is in 100 years, they are glad that this was built. That's a different threshold. That's a different ideology. That's a different way of approaching things. For your brand, what does it look like in 5, 10, 15, 25 years? What does success look like in that time? And it's not just about financial, it's about the kind of company that you're building and the way that you're building it. How do we lean into that? The through line. Questions I want to ask. Would 8-year-old me respect the decisions that I'm making? It sounds really silly. And I'm almost embarrassed to write that down, but it really is a thing for me. Would the 8-year-old version of me respect who I've become and what I'm doing? And as a dad, would my sons be proud of what I'm doing? If they could really see it, if they could really know the ins and the outs of the business, I don't mean from 100 miles away, I mean from up close. Would they respect the things that I'm doing? Because if 8-year-old me respects it, if my children respect it, then it's a dead giveaway that I'm building for 100 years from now instead of right now. Because I want to play the long game. So for today, ask yourself those questions. Is this the long game? Is this about credibility? Is this about respect? Is this about value? Is this about collaboration? Is this about all the things that are the best and the brightest in us? Or is this just about making it right now? Is this about getting as much as quickly as humanly possible? Because as the boy from Oklahoma, there's farming and there's slash and burn. Slash and burn doesn't leave it better. Slash and burn destroys. But good farmers pay attention to the land. They listen to the needs of the moment. They rotate crops. There are all these things that we've done historically that we're actually learning in the year 2025 that those are actually really good for the property. They're really good for the land. They're really good for the longevity. And we're trying to do things in a long-term, sustainable way. Because in 100 years, we'll be glad that we did. And this is where I say it messy, before anyone can assume that it was tidy all along. See you next week.